Welcome to lesson 6.10, simple interest. Our objective for today, I can use the formula I equals PRT to calculate simple interest. But what is simple interest? Well, simple interest is the amount of money paid or earned for the use of money. Well, what, Mrs. Wall? I don't understand what that means. Well, when we have a bank account, what we do is we take our money and we put our money into our bank account. And because we keep our money in the bank, we earn money just for keeping it there, which is pretty cool. So you can earn interest by the longer you keep your money in the bank, the more money you will earn. Okay, the other type of interest is bad interest, which, like Mrs. Wall, if you go to college, you'll have a student loan, or if you buy a house or a car, you have a loan. And that loan is when you borrow money from the bank to pay for something. So when you have that loan, the longer it's paid out over time, the more interest you're going to have to pay back, which means the more money we're going to have to pay back. Okay, so what is simple interest? It is the amount of money paid or earned for the use of money. So again, there's good interest and there's bad interest. The bad interest is when you borrow money. That means the longer you borrow it, the more you're going to have to pay back. And then there's good interest. The more you keep money in the bank, the higher you get in the amount of money back. Okay, so we have this formula, and the formula is I equals PRT. Okay, and I like to remember it is I Purdy, right? I-P-R-T, I Purdy. Haha, get it? No, okay. So interest, I stands for the interest. So that's the amount of money that I'm going to earn. Okay. The P stands for principal. Now, I'm not talking about Mr. Straley. I'm talking about the amount of money you put into your account to begin with. So the principal is the amount in the account to begin with. So when I think of principal, it's almost like the original when we think about percent. So it's the that we start with. The R is going to be our rate, and the rate is the interest rate, and that's known as the percent. Okay? And then the T stands for time, which is always in years. Always in years. Okay? So when we accumulate interest, the amount that we put in to begin with, the percent that we're going to get back, and how much time it's in that bank account all impacts how much money we're going to get back. Okay, so let's calculate some interest problems. So this first one says Larry invests $100 in a savings plan. The plan pays 4.5% interest each year on his $100 account balance. How much money will Larry earn in interest after 3 years? So really, 4.5% of 100 isn't very much. So he's not going to earn a lot of money. Let's see how much he's going to learn. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my formula. I equals PRT. Now I'm going to have to, over to the side, I'm going to write what my I is, what my P is, my R, and my T. Okay, so now let's see, how much does he start with? The principal, well, he starts with $100. So I'm going to write $100 for my principal. My rate is 4.5%, but be careful, 4.5% as a decimal, I have to move that 2 spaces over. That's actually going to be 0.045. Okay? Now my time, how long is it putting in it? 3 years, so my T is 3. And it wants to know how much he'll earn, so it wants to know how much interest he'll have. So that's going to be my X. Okay, so now let's plug these into the formula. I have I, which is really X, equals my P, which is 100, times my R, which is 0.045, times my T, which is 3. And when I plug those all in, I get that X equals 4.5, which really means if I keep $100 in the bank account for a year and I don't touch it, at this interest rate, I'll earn $4.50. Mrs. Wall, $4.50 isn't a lot. You're right, but it's more than we had to begin with, right? So, looking at this, we need to think to ourselves, if this is how much money he makes a year in interest, how could we figure out how much he has in his account after 5 years? Well, first we need to figure out how much he has in interest after 5 years. So when we think about this, if he gets $4.50 every 1 year in interest, if I'm doing 5 years, I'm going to have to multiply that $4.50 every year by my 5 years to get a total of $22.50. So if I put $100 in my bank account, don't touch it for 5 years, I'll have an extra $22.50. Pretty cool, right? So then how would we figure out how much he has total in his bank account? Well, he would have the 100 that he started with, plus over the course of those 5 years, they put in $22.50 total. So that means in his bank account, he has $122.50. So it's really wise if you have a lot of money and you don't need to use it, the more money you put into your account, the bigger the interest is going to be. Okay? So let's look at number 2 together now. So number 2 says find the balance of a savings account at the end of 10 years. Ooh, 10 years looks important. 10 years of an interest earned is 7.5%. The principal is $500. All right. I see interest. I'm going to use my formula I per D. So I equals PRT. I'm going to have my I, my P, my R, and my T. So my interest. Well, I don't know my interest, so that's going to be my X. My principal, it says right here, principal is 500. Again, not Mr. Straley. The rate is 7.5%. But remember, I need to change that to an actual decimal, not a percent. So I'm going to move it 2 spaces over. I get 0.075. And then my time is 10 years. So I'm going to plug in 10. Now that I have what everything equals, Mrs. Wall, there we go. I can plug them into my equation. So I have I equals my P, which is 500, times my rate, which is 0.075, times my time, which is 10 years. When I plug that in, I end up getting that my interest is $375. Whoa, Mrs. Wall, it's amazing. Yeah, think about that. If I put $500 in my bank account and I don't touch it for 10 years, I'm going to make $375. So then how much do I have in my bank account total? Well, I'm going to have the $500 that I started with plus the $375 that I have in for interest to give me a total of $875 in my bank account. That is pretty sweet, if you ask me. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead and flip the page. So when we were talking about time, we talked about how it is always in terms of years, but sometimes people don't put money in for a certain amount of years exactly. Sometimes they do it by month, sometimes they do it by a year and a half. So that's where we have to change our formulas a little bit because we need to make sure that the time is in terms of years, okay? So let's do this first one. It says $1,000 savings bond earns simple interest at a rate of 3% each year. The interest is pays at the end of every month. How much interest will the bond have after 3 months? All right, so the question is asking how much interest, which means when I write my I per D, I know that I don't know what my I is because that's what it's asking for. So that's going to be my X. Now my principal, well, my principal is how much we put in. We put in $1,000. So I'm going to put 1,000 over here. My rate, well, my rate is 3%. 3% as a decimal, remember, is 0.03. And my time, 3 months, whoa, red light. 3 months, I need it in terms of years. So when I think about years, well, 3 months is a quarter of a year. So my time is really going to be 0.25 because it is a quarter of a year. Once I know this, I can plug everything in. I equals my P, which is 1,000, times my 0.03, times my 0.25, because I'm only doing it for a quarter of a year. That's how much 3 months is. And when I do that, I get a total interest is $7.50. Okay, Mrs. Well, that's not a lot of money. If I leave it in for 3 months, I'm only going to get $7.50. Yeah, because the interest rate's low, and you're only doing it for 3 months. You're not doing it for a whole year, right? All right, so now what I want you to do is look at number 2. So number 2 says find the amount of simple interest earned on a $600 investment after 1.5 years of the semi-annual 6-month interest rate is 2. Whew, okay, so simple interest, I see it. I write my formula. I per D, I equals PRT. I have my I, my P, my R, and my T. So $600 is how much I put in. Boom, that's my principal. After 1.5 years, well, my time is in years, so that's okay. So I have 1.5 years. But now be careful. For my rate, it says it's a semi-annual, which means it's 6-month interest rate is 2%. So that means that for every 6 months, I get 2%. So if I have a 1.5 years, I really have 18 months. And 18 months is really 3 6-month periods. So I have to take my 2% and multiply it by 3. So my interest rate's actually going to be 6%.
Athletes going to the high school, please come to the lobby. Athletes going to the high school, please come to the main lobby.
Sorry, totally doing this after school. Okay, so let's look. We have 600 times our rate, which was 6%, times our 1.5. So when we do that all together, we get that in interest, we get $54 at the end of our 1.5 years. Okay. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for P, R, or T. So for these ones, when we're solving for one, we might not just have to find the interest. There will be another missing piece. Okay, so if we look at this first one, it says Miss Williams wants to know how long it will take an investment of $450 to earn $200 in interest if the yearly interest rate is 6.5%, paid at the end of each year. So she wants to know how long it will take. It says interest, so I'm going to have to write my formula, I per D. And once I have my formula, I'm going to write my I, my P, my R, and my T. So my interest, it says she wants to earn 200 in interest. So my interest is 200. My principal, it says it starts with 450. Now think about it. Your interest will always be smaller than your principal, right? Unless it's 100%, but that's never going to happen. So the rate here is 6.5. Need to move that decimal place 2 places, 0.065. And the time, we don't know how long it will take, so that is my X here. So now when I plug them into my formula, I have I, which is 200, equals my principal, which is 450, times my rate, which is 0.065, times I don't know how many years it's going to be. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I have to drop my line, but I can multiply these two, right? And when I multiply these two, I get 450 times 0.065. I get 2925. So I get 200 equals 2925. But don't forget, I'm still multiplying by the X here. So once I do that, to get rid of it, I'm going to have to divide by 2925. And I get 6.83. So X is the number of years. So if I have X equaling 6.8, blah, 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 really that's about 7 years that I'm going to need, right? So I'm going to write about 7 years. Okay? All right, the next one, you invest $2,000 in a simple interest account. After 8 years, you've earned $720 in interest. What is the interest rate? So when we think of interest rate, we don't know the percent. So we need to find the percent. So let's rock and roll. I equals PRT, I per D. So I'm going to put my I, my P, my R, and my T. So it says you invest $2,000. That's what you are putting in. So that's your principal. After 8 years, well, it's yearly, so I can put an 8 right there, right? Earn $720. So my interest is $720. I don't know my percent, so that's going to be my X. So when I plug it into my formula, I have $720, which is my interest, equals my $2,000 times my rate, which I don't know, times my time, which is 8. Well, 8 times 2,000 is going to give me 16,000 times my X. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 16,000 to get X by itself. And I get 720 divided by 16,000. And I get X equals 0.045. Mrs. Well, you can't have 0.045%. No, but if I move my decimal place 2 places over, I have 4.5%. 4.5%. Okay? All right, so what I would like you to do now, if possible, is I want you to try 3 and 4. Okay, so right here, down below, 3 and 4, you're going to do those on your own. The sub does have the answer key, so make sure you get it checked with them when you're done. But I really want you to do 3 and 4. And after you're done with 3 and 4, if you flip over the page, you can go ahead and skip number 5, and you can go right to the practice. Okay, so skip number 5, go right to the practice. And I'll tell you right now, for the practice, for the first 4, you're going to use the formula I equals PRT, and you're going to find I the whole time. Okay, so for the first 4 here, you just have to figure out what PR and TR, multiply them together to get your I. There is a back 2 if you get done with that. Make sure that you give your packet to the substitute when you're done with your name on it. Okay? All right, I hope you had fun. I'll see you tomorrow.